XRP ledger that could save you millions, especially if we're correct and XRP really does end up going to the moon. And I have a strong suspicion that the all-time high that was set in July, $3.65. I don't think the story's completed there. I have a very strong hunch that we are going to see XRP finally melt faces for the first time in close to 8 years, effectively, potentially by the time it happens. I mean, the better part of a decade, regardless. I do still think that's going to come here, but can you imagine if we get to that point and then somebody somehow gets access to your account and they're able to steal all of your XRP, your life-changing wealth? This is why I've always said, even if when you buy your crypto, it's not worth a fortune, you need to treat it like the fortune that it might be worth in the future. Because the crypto asset class keeps getting bigger, and for a coin like XRP that is an obvious early winner of the crypto space, you should treat it like a winning lottery ticket, even if monetarily it doesn't mean that yet for you. That's how I've always looked at this. But before going further, I do want to be clear. I do not have a headline from the Crypto Basic. XRP Ledger devs now working on an amendment to protect your XRP even if you fall victim to a scam or hack. And I'll tell you this at the outset. Depending on what the final version of this looks like, I personally might be very interested in this. And I hope that you guys are too, assuming it goes in a way that would truly allow security but a certain amount of flexibility. And you'll see why I'm articulating that the way that I am. So my piece reads as follows. The XRP Ledger community is now exploring a firewall proposal that could help protect user assets even after a private key compromise. And folks, that's the thing. How many times has somebody accidentally given up a private key, this or that, and then that's pretty much all she wrote? Because if somebody else has your private keys, goodbye to everything that you hold. Well, what if there's a solution for that? And it turns out that's literally what this is. This is for if your security is breached and somebody ends up with your private key. XRPL DUNL validator VET recently brought attention to the amendment. Notably, GitHub records show that Chris Dangerfield, an entrepreneur and XRP Ledger innovator, originally put forward the idea in November 2024 under the name XLS-86D. Dangerfield's proposal addresses a long-standing challenge. While the XRP Ledger already offers multi-signature protection, most wallets don't support it in a way that's easy for everyday users. Many also see multi-sig as too complicated to set up and manage. So those are the hurdles, well, a couple of the hurdles that need to be overcome here. And so here was the post from Vet, and this is just from the other day. He said, "It's over for many scammers. XLS-86 Firewall is an amendment for the XRP Ledger that is in development. It will finally eliminate you losing your XRP, tokens, and NFTs entirely if you use this functionality. Given the victims we have had in the past, I can't wait for it." And so I will say this. I like the way that they're going with this. I like the way they're thinking, and I'm going to explain in greater detail how this works in just a second, but I want to share with you his post first because there's not a lot of clarity for most people on how this works, and I haven't seen it properly articulated in any crypto media article that I've read on this. I haven't seen it, so I'm going to tell you. But somebody here named Humanity Wrath asked, "What is this firewall for and how does it work?" And Vet wrote, "It's a setting you can put on your XRP account to only allow transactions to go to whitelisted accounts of yours. So a scammer has no choice other than the ones you give him. It's in development for now and may take more time." Okay, so the new amendment, like I said, it's being developed for the XRP Ledger. It is designed to make it much harder for scammers to run off with your XRP, even if they somehow got into your account, like they have your private key. So the way it works is that you'll be able to set your wallet so it can only send XRP, again, like you said, to addresses you've personally whitelisted. So that means if a scammer tried to trick you or hack your signing device, they wouldn't be able to move your XRP to their own wallet unless that address was already approved by you, which it almost certainly would not, right? And so the whitelist itself, it isn't just something that a hacker could simply change. The idea is that updating or removing addresses from that list would require extra security. Like for instance, it could be a second key, a multi-signature setup, or even settings that make the whitelist permanent once you lock it in. So you'd have that control. Now, of course, with multi-sig, the concern being it's too cumbersome and not not easy for your typical user to utilize. Again, like I said a minute or two ago, that's something that would have to be overcome. This has to be extremely user-friendly. But, and I think a lot of that would probably just be once it's coded into the ledger, like, and it say the amendment does get approved, presumably whatever software you're using, you just have to have a nice user-friendly interface there. So I think that would probably be a lot of it, not just what's on the protocol level. That would be my guess anyway. But you know, on top of that, the amendment would allow you to put, and this is cool, potentially cool, could be bad, but it would allow you to put daily or periodic limits, whatever the time frame would be, but limits on how much XRP can leave your account. So you could set a limit that says only 1,000 XRP could leave the account in a single day, for just as an example, right? So even in a worst case scenario where somebody had some level of access to your account, they couldn't drain your entire balance in one shot. Instead, you'd have time to catch what's happening and stop it. So between the whitelist restrictions and the built-in transaction caps, this is essentially a safety net that protects XRP holders from both scams and outright hacks at the protocol level, rather than just relying on people to never make a mistake. So the whitelist part of this proposal, it makes sense. It's easy. I mean, it's really easy to see the upside there, right? But, the transaction limit idea could be a harder sell depending on what the final version looks like. Unless there's a safe and flexible way to change your limits, I think most XRP holders probably wouldn't touch it. And why? Well, you don't want a security feature that ends up blocking you from selling your own XRP when the market is going vertical. And I think that would be the biggest fear there. So yeah, great for security, but when you actually do want to sell, if you can't change that setting, a little more problematic. So that's the tightrope that the devs need to walk, frankly. Make it protective, but not restrictive, or at least not too restrictive. So what would the solution be? Well, like I mentioned a couple minutes ago, again, possibly a second key being required to sign transactions because, and you could have a bunch of different XRP accounts too. That might be another solution, frankly, but because you could set it to be maybe a percentage of your total balance that could be sold over a specific time period. Like there are things I think that developers can come up with to make this work and be reasonable. But even if it's just a second key, the odds, unless you're doing something completely stupid, the odds of a hacker ending up with your like two keys, say it is two keys that's required for this, much less likely. Especially if you're very careful about the way that this type of information is being protected by you. It's another layer of security. I don't know that any approach is ever actually 100% foolproof or perfect. But, if you just understand the concept of, okay, but let's make it harder for hackers, I think that's where they're going with this. And to me, that actually does make a ton of sense here. Who else probably would have liked this? Chris Larsen. Remember this headline, right? Ripple co-founder Chris Larsen. Bunch of XRP stolen. So here's the headline from January 31st of last year, 2024. XRP drops 5% after executive is hacked, sparking rumors of network breach. And yeah, so there was a rumor. There are a couple different rumors. One was that it was Ripple that got hacked. Here's a post from ZachXBT stating that it appears Ripple was hacked for 213 million XRP. So the price of XRP at the time was worth closer to 50 cents, maybe it was like 53, 54 cents. That ended up not being true. It actually turns out it was Chris Larsen's, again, the Ripple co-founder's wallet there. And then there was this headline as a result, same day. Ripple was not hacked for $112 million of XRP, but its co-founder was. And so some of it was stopped ultimately. For instance, here's a headline. This is from February 2nd of last year. Binance froze $4.2 million of XRP from hack on Ripple co-founder's wallet. So there were efforts that were made, but it frankly didn't stop the worst of this. And by the way, so I will tell you this. No one, at least there's no publicly available information, no one has been arrested in the Chris Larsen hack even to this point. And unfortunately, most of the funds were successfully laundered, at least to this point anyway. But, I will just say the fact that even someone high up in the industry like Chris Larsen with resources, again, he's the co-founder of Ripple, the theft of Ripple financial. No, he's a multi-billionaire. But the fact that this could happen to him, somebody that high up in the industry with resources, and the fact that he made security decisions that turned out to be very risky. I mean, it is a powerful cautionary tale, and something like what we're talking about here with this amendment could help to prevent this type of stuff for very obvious reasons, as I've articulated here. And by the way, on that front, and just actually I got to mention this too. So the final number, I can't remember which article this was in. I got a bunch of tabs open. Maybe I can't remember if it was this one. Yeah, this is the most recent one. So I believe, yeah, it's 200 and where did I see it? Is it here? Yeah, 283 million XRP ultimately. That was the final tally, I believe. 283 million XRP was stolen from him. That means that at XRP's all-time high in July at $3.65, that was over $1 billion worth of XRP that was stolen from him. That is staggering. And that's why I always say, like I said at the outset of the video, like you got to treat whatever your holdings are, even if you don't think it's worth enough or too much right now, you got to treat it like it's the winning lottery ticket that it might be in the future. That's how I've always looked at this. And so there's this update from March 7th of this year. Ripple co-founder Larsen's $150 million XRP theft linked to LastPass breach. So if you're wondering, how did this actually happen? Well, this is why. Check this out. The January 2024 theft of 283 million XRP from Ripple co-founder Chris Larsen's personal accounts has been linked to a password manager breach, according to a forfeiture complaint filed by U.S. law enforcement, revealed by crypto investigator Zach XBT. The investigator shared a screenshot of the forfeiture complaint in his Telegram channel on March 7th, claiming the theft was the result of storing private keys in LastPass. It's a password manager which was hacked in 2022. And up to this point, Chris Larsen had not publicly disclosed the cause of the theft. So I think most people in our community don't even know exactly why this happened. Anyway, according to the shared complaint, Larsen's private keys were stored in the online password manager before being destroyed. And folks, I gotta say, storing multiple passwords in one spot sounds like a really fucking bad idea. Just saying. Just my humble opinion. Anyway, four devices were enabled with the password manager, which had a long, unique password. The password manager, LastPass, suffered two major breaches, one in August 2022 and the other in November 2022, where the attacker stole encrypted passwords and online password management vault data. According to the US FBI, which investigated the case, the compromised data was used to steal cryptocurrency, among other things. And so we're still waiting to see if they're, how this thing ends. I don't know if they're ever going to actually catch whoever the hell did this. I certainly hope so, because this is terrible and disgusting, and I despise people that act in such terrible ways. We'll see. But again, this is why I say, protect yourselves, folks. There are things that you can actually do here, and this is one more thing. If this amendment gets passed, that could make it harder. And that's why I said at the outset of the video, depending on the final version of this amendment, should it get passed, I might be interested in this, very legitimately. I want to know what the restrictions are, what flexibility we're going to have there. But yeah, just the general concepts of this, I think, if done right, this could be a huge win for XRP holders. Absolutely. Because I don't think anybody is above, or could be 100% confident that they can't get hacked. And people can be tricked on top. Like, intelligent people, absolutely, under the right circumstances, can be tricked. And I always worry about that type of stuff too. It can happen if very specific circumstances. Yes, even intelligent people who are very careful with their assets of value. I'm telling you, I believe anybody could be tricked under the right circumstances. And I'm always worried that I could be one of those people, even though I'm not an idiot, and even though I am hyper cautious when it comes to all things crypto. Because you don't know what you don't know. What's the thing that could actually trick you? And if you have this attitude that, oh, it couldn't happen to me, come on. Get rid of the ego, get rid of the cockiness. It could happen to any of us. Now, there are certain things that we wouldn't all fall for, and I'll give you that, sure. But if you're going to tell me there's nothing that you could fall for, I'm just like, get the hell out of here. Come on, man. Like, be intellectually honest. Do you really believe that? It's impossible. You're the one human on the planet that just can't be tricked.